Hello everyone, DonTheCrown here. I just want to do a quick update for you if you didn't check out the quick little campfire here for the mid-season of Diablo 4. And it was pretty interesting. They definitely went a direction I wasn't 100% expecting, but I'm pretty happy about. And so just to hop into it right away, there will be no mid-season nerfs to Spiritborn. Yes, you should expect to see the bugs fixed for Season 7, which is going to probably mean a lot of Spiritborn nerfs at that time. However, for mid-season, if you've been enjoying Spiritborn, you've been playing it, you've been grinding it up, trying to get to pit 150, you can go and do that, and you shouldn't have to worry about any sort of nerfs or bugs getting fixed in the middle of the season here. And pretty much the reason why they did this is because there's been kind of a philosophy change since the beginning of the game versus later in the game. So when the game first came out, they were prioritizing class parity over power fantasy. They're pretty much just playing whack-a-mole with everything that was strong, and this was horrible. I hated this. As a player, I hated this. As a content creator, I hated this. It was just very, very, very unfun. Like, to the point where they were, like, turning off aspects in the middle of the season for, like, weeks at a time because they were bugged. They like, disabled a unique that I was farming for, because like 2 or 3 people got it and were doing way too much damage with it. And it was very just unfun thing to do, just to see them like just constantly, anytime anything OP was found, they just break it. And then in season 2, we were playing Ball Lightning, and Ball Lightning was obviously very overtuned compared to everything else. Like I killed, I think, Uber Lilith like in my 70s or something like that. It was super duper insane. And so they no longer wanted to be the fun police in season 2. And they just allow players to break the game. And the only times that they made an exception to this was if game performance is impacted. So as we saw with Spiritborn this season with the evade build, where it was causing some server issues and stuff, they did dial that down a little bit. And to me and to a lot of other people, this is definitely a lot more fun. It is very unfun in an ARPG to spend weeks grinding up to play some sort of OP build. And then you find out that it's just got the nerf bat overnight, and it's just completely gone. And like, just to reiterate, in preseason, season 0, that literally happened. Like, we went to bed while grinding to level 100, trying to be one of the first teams to level 100. And when we woke up, our glyphs that we had spent like hours grinding up to 21, all were reduced in power by like 66% reduction overnight. And so they're not doing anything like that anymore. So we're not going to see Spiritborn nerfs, but we are going to see buffs for other classes in here as we skip ahead here a little bit. So they're not nerfing Spiritborn, but they are planning to bring other classes up a little bit, but they are not going to be at the level of like 150 Spiritborn, because next season, this is going to get pulled down quite a bit, I would guess. And they're just kind of bring the parity back down closer to where it is for the other classes. Now, the other classes are relatively looking pretty good. If you ignore Spiritborn, we're seeing like 120, 122, 120, 113, 110. Now, I do want to point out that like Barbarian, for example, is experiencing a major bug that's giving it quite a bit of power. I think the Sorcerer has some other bugs. Necromancer has some bugs. And so bugs tend to push the upper limit of what builds can do. And so kind of hoping that we're going to see some of these pared down. It's going to be a little bit less ridiculous in the top end, and everybody just kind of having a similar experience of power will be pretty nice. And so like, don't expect though all of a sudden on Sorcerers to be able to clear 150 tomorrow or something, or next week. So they're also going out and they're proving some of the aspects for different classes. And I think this is really, really good. They're just making some of the ones that people weren't using before at all a lot more appealing. So things like battle mat aspect, which people don't really use all that much. And there's just a whole bunch of different things. Like, for example, the tornado seek targets. This now also gives you 50% increased damage, which might be a little too much damage IMO for one aspect, but that's pretty cool. And just like some of the uniques and stuff also getting buffed. Specifically, I want to talk about Sorceress, or things like the combustion key passive, which I think that at this point, it's pretty clear that Sorcerer, especially damage over time, is having quite a large problem. You kind of see this reflected with Spiritborn, because this is like one of the biggest key passives we have in the game now. Burning effects deal 60% increased damage and an additional 25% of your damage to burning enemies bonus. So this could give, like on this screen right here, is showing 120% multiplier. And it's still probably not going to be best. And the reason is just because, like as we see in Spiritborn, if you do damage over time, the best thing to do is just to somehow, reap that into being instant damage. And so, for example, what Spiritborn does is they have the key passive down here at the bottom called Noxious Resonance, where its crits basically remove the poison off the target and explode them in an AoE, and that's multiplied by your critical strike damage bonus, which is just incredibly strong. And so I think that damage over time just in general is probably a little bit undertuned because of that. It doesn't really feel like it scales up that much. As soon as enemies start to live a little too long, it gets pretty scary. So I don't know if they need to do some like overall, changes to how damage over time is handled in this game, but for the player at least, that seems pretty weak. For enemies, this seems pretty strong. We also are going to see buffs for things like Avalanche. We're getting more damage with this key passive, which is pretty nice. And then they went and they changed a whole bunch of these new aspects that we added a while ago. And a lot of these are just kind of bad. So like Ice Shards here, for example, had at the best negative 5% damage per subsequent enemy hit. And now it has 10% additive damage per subsequent enemy hit, which just makes Ice Shards maybe playable. I don't know, definitely still has some problems to it. They also went out and they changed the brand new passive they just added, or aspects they just added, which is like charged bolts. Every time it hits 50 times, your next 3 casts became a like flat damage wave, which was absolutely horrible. It didn't really do any damage at that point, and just seemed really, really weak. And they're changing that, so now it's the next 3 casts will become waves that pierce and critically surge upon impact. I don't know if I like this. I don't know if this is actually enough damage, because you're basically taking a skill that, like, if you're hitting point blank, you're hitting a whole bunch of times, and now it's just going to be one big flat wave. It might be better for clear, but yeah, I don't know if this is going to be enough for this particular thing. However, aspect of overheating is absolutely bonkers, and just another sign of Fire Sork might be coming back. But after channeling Incinerate for 3 seconds, it deals, instead of flat damage, 100% increased damage for 5 seconds. And casting Incinerate refreshes and maintains this bonus. So now Incinerate is basically getting another aspect that is increasing its damage tremendously. So it has like has more aspects, I think, than any other skill to give a ton of damage. It is getting a little silly. So to give you an idea, Incinerate has Conflagration. So while channeling Incinerate, your burning damage increased by 40%, and enemies occasionally explode. Now we have Overheating, give you another 100% increase. Maybe this is on a two-hander. And then Flamethrower's aspect. I don't think there's any other skill in the game that has 3 huge damage aspects. Absolutely tremendously, insanely large aspects, all pushing it forward. So if Incinerate isn't good after this patch, I don't know. Like there's something wrong with the build in general. Now, what else do we have here? Spiritborn is getting some small, tiny buffs to some skills that have less success, like Razor Wings, for example. Try to make this work, kind of feels bad. Withering Fist also getting some buffs as well, but I'm pretty sure that is like the extent of the buffs outside of Toxic Skin here, getting a little bit as love as well. But that's pretty much it. And so we're pretty much seeing like Spiritborn is going to stay the same as what it was. We're seeing some changes to some rune word buffs, and we'll get the patch notes for this later on this week. Shrines are going to be better this season, or get better soon. Artillery, Blast Wave, and Conduit Shrine should do more damage. I don't know why Conduit Shrine isn't like a almost one-shot everything shrine. Hopefully they bring the power level up. They have the Red Cloaked Horror event coming back for the holidays, which is nice. It's an actual like event that feels like an event. I kind of feel like the events have felt kind of weak for Diablo 4 to this point, but the Red Cloaked Horror is pretty good. Now they did talk about updates to ancestral items, and they did agree that it's a little bit too difficult right now to max out some of your aspects, and it's something that they're going to look into and like potentially dial back the difficulty a little bit. But yeah. I don't really like how aspects work right now on ancestrals, especially the communication factor where like if you're looking at it and you're not looking at an ancestral item, you can't see the match roll of the aspect. Just really annoyed me when I saw that for the first time. And then what else? Other questions they ask here. I think that it's gonna be really interesting too, because next week we're having another campfire chat where they'll be talking about the season 7 PTR that'll be coming up. And I believe the PTR is going to be after Thanksgiving, and so we'll be able to hop into season 7, try out the new changes, see what the new season mechanic is going to be like. We'll probably need some tweaking and some feedback from us, and also just see how Spiritborn feels after the inevitable nerfs, which is just going to be pretty exciting. And there's a lot of bugs, a lot of issues that are going on with Spiritborn. It'll be really interesting to see how the class survives as a whole as you remove things like Viscous Shield, Redirecting Force, all these other things like I talked about on my Scourge build, which is, one of my favorite builds right now in Diablo 4. I'm not sure if it survives losing all of those multipliers because it just kind of seems a little bit undertuned. And in fact, I think that Spiritborn as a whole, once you remove these nerfs or these bugs that are experiencing, might be undertuned comparative to some other classes. It has this less aspect slots. A lot of its aspects don't really do a lot of damage for it. And so we'll have to see where it comes out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and we'll see you again soon.